All they ever do is to still loot and denying our face. The government is an abomination. Swear, my brother, no respect for humanity. Fake pastor who do not know God are made ambassadors to smuggle gold. Charlatans like a ransom. Uber devil, nothing angelic about him. J Israel and crew, criminals with a Bible fake prayer so they can fool the evil regime. Oh, shameless musicians like Jah Praiser, Olivia, gospel mafia. You have no idea it's broken. Broken to pieces and Lutex prison office. It's a shepherd youth. Zimbabwe, give to salons. I forget all that. Our country is broken, stolen and torn apart. How do I tell my story? The future of Zimbabwe is in a sorry state. And how do I shout for justice? Girlfriends are made ministers, corruption silenced our mouth. Zimbabwe is a story, mama. Can I tell you my story? Back in the day, this country was working. Listen, brother, you Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is broken, mama. All they ever do is to still loot and deny our face. The government is an abomination. Swear, my brother, no respect for humanity. Fake pastor who do not know God are made ambassadors to smuggle gold. Charlatans like a ransom. Uber devil, nothing angelic about him. J Israel and crew, criminals with a Bible fake prayer so they can fool the evil regime. Oh, shameless musicians like Jah Praiser, Olivia, gospel mafia. You have no idea it's broken. Broken to pieces and Lutex prison officer, shepherd youth. Zimbabwe, give to salons. I forget all that. Our country is broken, stolen, torn apart. How do I tell my story? The future of Zimbabwe is in a sorry state. And how do I shout for justice? Girlfriends are made ministers, corruption silenced our mouth. Zimbabwe is broken, mama. Mama. Can I tell you my story? Back in the day, this country was working. Listen, brother, you Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a broken, mama. Can I tell you my story? Zvakaoma kumana. Regai timbo nzwisisa kuti zviri kuitwa Zimbabwe government. Andisuda kupa a very strong warning, but I'm just warning my Zimbabwe government that there is nothing new that they want to do. What we are witnessing, this attack on the constitution of Zimbabwe is an attack on Zimbabweans. We are the people who had an input in this constitution. So any proposal that amends what Zimbabweans want, how Zimbabweans want to be governed, it's against the people of Zimbabwe. And the finish mkoma yuda topabuda erapo pashata tobuda mkoma nash ndo saka ndauya live on Facebook. This live on Facebook has been requested by public demand, and I think Zimbabweans will throng this one, and vanhu vane ma-emotions, vanhu vari kuda kuziva kuti what's gonna happen. What I want to urge Zimbabweans, first of all, don't listen, or please don't tell me all those generals who were telling us that they want to uphold the country's constitution and are the guardians of the country's constitution have all wiped out, have been all wiped out by the system. Because remember, when we removed Robert Gabriel Mugabe, Constantino Chiwenga came
holding the constitution of the country, and he said this is the supreme law of that country. So that supreme law, it's a constitution that was drafted by the people of Zimbabwe. And Zimbabweans consented to its adoption in 2013, just means a few years ago, when we adopted that constitution. And even junior officers have been, unfortunately, we can see junior officers in Zimbabwe being forced into submission. It actually means we can't help ourselves but watch helplessly as criminals and thieves more or tear our constitution apart. As vanopenga jede madhara awo dambudziko tori kutongwa nevanhu. This is why I've come live on Facebook kutitarisira kuti what is happening in Zimbabwe today hasn't happened anywhere in the world. What we are witnessing madness. Tikuona tikuratidzwa kupenga kwekuti tikarega kuda kusimuka kuti stope kupenga, we will all perish. Zimbabweans will perish and the country will perish. Hanzi ndoona zvatadza kubudirira. Ndosaka muri kuona vaimhanya kupa motikari macelebrities, kupa motikari vaimbi, kuita sekuti vese vaite rally behind this 2030. Ndo yakanga iri reason yacho. But Zimbabweans, can we sit and watch whilst this is happening? Can we just sit and watch while this is happening? Togara here, totarisa, because if you have witnessed of late on my WhatsApp page, on my WhatsApp, I've been posting weapons of war. I've been posting suggestive material to say if everything fails, then we have got no option. We need to take up arms against the ZANU-PF regime. It's allowed. It's allowed by the international laws. It's allowed. We are not agreeing. ZANU-PF is a political part which should not be left dissecting our constitution. So we are allowed by law. We are allowed by law. It's really bullshit. We are allowed by law because what we are doing, we are the citizens of a country. We are the citizens of Zimbabwe. So by taking up arms against ZANU-PF government, we are like protecting the constitution. We need to protect the constitution. No one must tamper with that document. It's a scared document. It's the supreme law of the country, and we did it. We wrote that as Zokaiti KuHondo, I'm ready to come back home, Petrus Paenda. I'm telling you, I'm ready to come back and fight. Papa, I'm telling you, I'm being honest. This is me. This is me. This is Shepherd Yuda. I'm ready to come back to defend that constitution. And Chakaora Chunu, Chakaore Sesa, and Chakaore Sesa. We cannot sit and watch, ladies and gentlemen, whilst that constitution is being mutilated by thieves, because these are not people who were elected. Mnangagwa has never been elected. He has never won an election in Zimbabwe. Saka 7-year presidential term, Mnangagwa anoidi. And it on. What does that benefit the people of Zimbabwe? With the current rot we witness in our country, as soft as who Mugabagazi azvitaura izvi akati haiwa muchachema maZimbabweans vakutochema varikutochema. Saka ndiri kutaura panapa live on Facebook that look, we need to protect that constitution with whatever means we can, with whatever strategy we can. It's time now not to sit on our laurels and think things will automatically work when we don't fight for the things. We definitely need to make our voices heard. We need to fight and protect the constitution of Zimbabwe. I've got a bit of history that I'm going to share with you, the people of Zimbabwe. What you must understand, what things you must know. I'm going to share you a bit history of Zimbabwe. Right. I'm going to talk about Zimbabwe. Strategic background. I've got some notes that I'm going to read here. I've got some notes that I'm going to read, which I've been preparing since morning. I'm not going into details of what constitutional amendments ZANU-PF wants to do. No. I'm not going to do that because everybody here knows what constitutional amendments ZANU-PF has proposed, and they want to table them before the parliament. And ndopa pakupinda kuti my members of parliament ataka electa. Sorry guys, ndaguma this thing, ndaguma accidentally. I've gumaed this thing accidentally. And ZANU-PF inotoda gidi. Yeah, ndopa paimbo gidi ishasha zveshwa. Gidi rinotonga zedi. Sabu ishasha zveshwa. Sabu inotonga zedi. Yeah. If the constitution was written by the people and it is also subject to amendment, if the constitution was written by the people and it is also subject to amendment, it can only be amended by the people who wrote it, not by a political party. This is what we are saying no. One political party cannot dissect the constitution, cannot amend the constitution when it was written by 16 million people. 17 million people do not belong to ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF, if you look at how it was winning election, it has never won this election by over 3 million people. No. This country has got 17 million people. Hanzi varungu vari nani zvavo. Aiwa takatongorana Smith vakanga vari nani. We have never seen such madness. Anditi maona. Saka, let me give you a brief history, ladies and gentlemen. As you come you damurise kwakadini. Niko, kuno kwakanaka mwana wamai. Zvakudiwa apa, takutotanga kuto vane matumbu makuru ayande ekutombo joga mbichana preparing, because this is war declared by ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF has declared war against the people of Zimbabwe. So if we don't accept their invitation and take them head on, apana zvatiri kuita. Ande muri kuona? Apana zvatinenge tichiita. Because they are declaring war against us. If you try to amend the constitution that was written by 17 million people and is being amended by only 15 thieves in a country, that's a declaration of war. And the Zimbabweans must be braced up for that war. We must be braced up for that war. Because, let me take you back a little bit. When Prime Minister Ian Smith of Rhodesia declared unilateral declaration of independence, UDI, from Britain on November 11, 1965. I'm taking you back a little bit so that we towirirana tonzwanana atete loveness muri say towirirana tonzwanana kuti is this not a declaration of war against the people of Zimbabwe? Maswera sei mukoma Shapiro hepi kukuonai makasimba takasimba mwana wamai isaka ndakasimba and I'm ready to go. So what we are saying here is when Prime Minister Ian Smith of Rhodesia declared unilateral declaration of independence, UDI, from Britain on November 11, 1965, little did he know that no country in the world would ever formally recognize his illegal white minority regime for the entire 15 years as its existence. Pane history yandoda kuti mubate hanzi kutongwa nembavha. VeZimbabwe changamukai changamukai muri kutongwa nembavha changamukai. VeZimbabwe changamukai changamukai muri kutongwa nembavha changamukai. Vana Yudha takaramba zvekutongwa nembavha changamukai. Inini Yudha ndakaramba zvekutongwa nembavha changamukai. Mose, Mose, changamukaiwo. Muri kutongwa nembavha, changamukai. VeZimbabwe, changamukai, changamukai. Muri kutongwa nembavha, changamukai. Mukara mabvumira izvi, Zimbabwe is shut down. So what ZANU-PF is doing is trying to shut down Zimbabwe so that they do whatever they please. And Murugona, utilizing your soldiers, utilizing the resources that were bought with your taxpayers' money. It's your money. Those weapons were bought by you people. It's you who contributed tax, and it's you people who bought those firearms. It's you people who are paying these soldiers today. It's you people who are paying the police today. It's you people who wrote that constitution. It's not ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF as a political party cannot pay those soldiers, cannot pay the police, cannot pay the Air Force, cannot pay any civil servant in Zimbabwe. It's you taxpayers' money who are paying the salaries of these men and women. You understand? So we are paying even Emerson Mnangagwa's salary. So we must not be held slaves in our country. Ndati nini Smith paka declare UDI muna November 11, 1965. Hana akanga asina kutarisira kuti hurumende yake will never be recognized worldwide. For 15 years I declare UDI, Smith was never recognized. This is what Emerson Mnangagwa is doing. Emerson Mnangagwa's government has never been recognized in this world. Mukada kuverenga the SADC report yakataura kuti that election was a non-event. Mnangagwa's government is not recognized in this world. It's not a recognized government. It's an illegal government. It's an illegitimate government, which even if we decide to take it head on now, no one will come and help Mnangagwa. No one will come and help ZANU-PF government. But it's an illegitimate. Akuna nyika inoda kuassociata ne an illegitimate president. Inoda kuassociata ne an illegitimate leader. And this morning, what we are doing, I need to take you back. History nyika in Zimbabwe, when it was Rhodesia, could Ian Smith he declared UDI. This is a declaration of UDI. Smith in 1965. But Smith was never recognized by this world. His illegal white regime or minority, just like Mnangagwa's illegal black minority rule, who will never be recognized in this world. Despite of 46 years existence, ZANU-PF has never been recognized in this world. Anymore. So this political act of defiance, like what we are witnessing today, when Mnangagwa, when a single political party led by an illegitimate president are in defiance of 16 million people, trying to mutilate the country's constitution. That's a defiance. A similar defiance that was shown by Ian Smith when he declared UDI. Asi mugabakati muzvionere pamunhu sefodya munhu ndakamufaya kwakuita nachiwenga. Mugabe said it kuti very soon he will be crying. Muchandirangarira and vanhu vakuona kuti Mugabe was a better devil. Andimona. So this act of defiance by a Smith regime, it convinced the colonized blacks that the only way to attain black majority rule was through the barrel of a gun. Batai kutaura kwandiri kuita. Anditika, batai kutaura kwandiri kuita uko. Vane mweya muchena waMwari, pindai makomo. Endai munorira nengoni. Mubvunze denga kuti zvekutaurwa naYudha izvo ari kuti. Because I've taken you back to UDI in 1965. I can come back even today. Aaron, ingoisa mari muaccount mangu chete endege wonoti handisvike here kuZimbabwe. Nhasi chaiye I can come. I can come today into Zimbabwe. I'm ready anytime. My services are not are ready. I don't want. My services are ready to the nation, to the country. I've given services for free to that country. And I'm ready to continue to serve Zimbabwe. I'm ready to continue to serve Zimbabwe. I am saying here, listen to me. There is a background to what Mnangagwa is doing. It is similar to what Ian Smith did in 1965 when he declared UDI. That political act of defiance alone, it convinced the colonized black people. We were colonized by Ian Smith. We were colonized by the British. And the defiance of Ian Smith, it convinced us, it convinced our fathers, it convinced our sisters, our mothers, that the only way to attain black majority rule was through the barrel of a gun. Chengetai video, you know. This is the historical background of Zimbabwe. That after defiance, we are telling Emmerson Mnangagwa, he is defiant. He has gone far than expected of a president. ZANU-PF has gone far than expected of a political party. And their defiance, kapfunga kokuti hatina zvatinoitwa nekuti tine masoja. Kapfunga kokuti hatina zvatinoitwa nekuti tine civil servant on our side. Tine masoja on our side. Ndo kapfunga kata kumuudza nhasi. Regai nditaurire, I'm addressing Emmerson Mnangagwa mbune. Kana mchikwanisa kumutaga on this platform, tag him today. Kuti misodzi yake yaapedyo. Andini maona. Ndosaka muri kuona, even if you go to Libya, Libyans are not mad to wake up wiping Gaddafi family. They're not mad, those people. Libyans have been through thick and thin in the hands of Muammar Gaddafi. But the problem is also, we are not Libyans. We have never lived in Libya. We don't know what happened in Libya. Isusu toita zvinhu zvekuverenga mabhuku kuti Libyans vanhu vakadai zvaitwa zvakati ivo vega vana mbune vari muLibya, they understand their situation better than isusu. This is why you see they took up arms against Gaddafi government. This is why you see they took arms and they are wiping Gaddafi family as we speak. Mwana wa Gaddafi akapinda muLibya will be gunned down. Why? Is it because the experience Libyans had under Muammar Gaddafi? Unonzwa mwe African aita kuti Gaddafi was a hero. Africans say that. Zimbabweans say that. It's just like a Ghanaian. I have had a brush with Ghanaians. I met one Ghanaian in Teesside University who was idolizing Robert Mugabe, calling Mugabe a hero. And that guy, I had to show him that guy, look, when you're calling Mugabe a hero, have you ever asked Zimbabweans, we as Zimbabweans, we fled from this Robert Mugabe. And I showed them this. These are hearing aids after I have been tortured severely under the Mugabe regime. I lost hearing, I lost teeth. Right now, I wear dentures. I wear dentures because I've lost my teeth being tortured by the Mugabe regime. I lost my hearing being tortured by the Mugabe regime. And you meet a foreigner from Uganda, a foreigner from Ghana, telling you that Mugabe is a hero. When I met that guy, my eyes turned red when he said Mugabe was a hero. My eyes turned red. I almost ate him. It's only that the British, the British, they want people to live in peace. If it was in that shithole country, I would have harmed the guy. I am telling you. I would have harmed him. Because you cannot come to a victim of Robert Mugabe and tell that victim that the guy who killed your family, the guy who killed your friends, the guy who instigated your torture is a hero. That was tantamount to urinating in my face, on my face. That's the reason why I'm saying Mugabe had gone too far. Same applies to the people of Libya. You stand in front of Libyans and tell them that Muammar Gaddafi was a hero. They will gun you down. They will gun you down. Because of what they went through, the experience they suffered under the Muammar Gaddafi rule. is similar to the experience we suffered under Robert Mugabe rule. So when Emerson Mnangagwa came to power, people in ZANU-PF, they had high hopes. It was Chiwenga who went to take Mnangagwa from South Africa to say, come now, we have appointed you to become a president. And I don't think Chiwenga expected what he is seeing today. I don't think those people who rallied behind the removal of Mugabe are happy today with what they are seeing. They're not happy. This is playing with the fire. This is why I'm saying in this presentation, I need to take you back to the UDI declaration, where Ian Smith became defiant. And the black minority, they sat down, the oppressed ones, the people who were suffering. They sat down and they were convinced that the only way to attain majority rule, to attain independence under such conditions, was only through the barrel of a gun. That is the only way Zimbabweans can free themselves. Robert Mugabe's response, I'm telling you, I'm taking you back. Robert Mugabe's response to UDI was, listen to what Mugabe said. He said, for all those who cherish freedom, this is Robert Mugabe, and a meaningful life, UDI has set a collision course which cannot be altered. This is what Robert Mugabe said. 11 November 1965 marked a turning point of the struggle for freedom in that land. It marked the turn for freedom in that land from a constitutional and a political one to a primarily military struggle. This is what Mugabe said. He said 11 November 1965, when Ian Smith declared UDI. It marked a turning point of the struggle for freedom in that land from a constitutional and a political one to a primarily military struggle. Mashoko a Robert Mugabe, these are not my words. And Smith anawazukuru vatonge zvavo better than it. I'm not sure. But what I'm saying here is these are Robert Gabriel Mugabe's words when the UDI was declared in 1965. He said, our shift as a people of Zimbabwe, or a Rhodesian black minority, we have shifted our struggle for freedom from just being constitutional and political to primarily military struggle. So this is when they decided to shift from Zana NCA to the constitution in Yohan. Nezve politics zvekuti chinjaiwe maitiro ako ezvokubwa. Vakasiya zvese zvimaslogan zviya. Vakatanga kutarisa the opportunities of military struggle. So it sounded Clausewitzian. Someone is calling. Unfortunately, I'm live on Facebook. If you want to join me, can you quickly come join me? I would welcome your participation. So what we are saying here is there is now a shift. There is defiance in ZANU-PF, defiance in Emerson Mnangagwa, where Zimbabweans now need to shift their focus from slogans, political freedom, and from constitutional freedom this has proved that we don't have a constitution. A constitution that was written by the people of Zimbabwe is being mutilated in their face with no powers to stop it. If you try to stop it, Mnangagwa will deploy soldiers and gun you down. So, to prevent being gunned down, to prevent being killed in Zimbabwe, we need to shift our focus. Our focus was on constitutional and political. And we need now to try and shift that focus to a military struggle. Because the military now, are dictating the pace. This is a declaration of war. So there is a pending war, which we see today. An extension of politics by other means. We need to extend our politics by another means. We need to scale the level of our political participation. We need to scale it up. We definitely need to scale it up. Because if you look at viewed in Mao Zedong's doctrine, I'm taking you back. Viewed in Mao Zedong's doctrine, vindicated this idea that war is politics with blood, and politics is war without blood. Regaiti mbunzo pane vari kunyora hanzi naJohn Piri, we have lost, hapana zvatingaita apo. ZANU-PF behaves as if they are the only Zimbabweans, changing the constitution to suit their own narrative. Today's parliament session shows once again that Zimbabwe has been treated like ZANU-PF's personal property. Honestly, I don't see us winning this unless Zimbabweans decide to stand up for themselves and challenge the regime. This is why I've said, Mkoma John, let me take you back to the UDI declaration. Nhoroondo yakazoita kuti muZimbabwe muve an armed struggle. Anditi maona? Because if we talk about war, war is simply politics with blood. But the politics is just war without blood. Andimona. So let's look at that sense. In Great Britain, when we say Great Britain, we mean England, Wales, and Scotland. That's what we call Great Britain. So in Great Britain, there was this gentleman known as Sir Dingle Foot, the Solicitor General in the British government, who responded by giving an implied approval for the Africans' resort to armed struggle. Manzwa here, nati muno muBritain, Great Britain, kwaine murungu ainzi, anga ari solicitor, ainzi Sir Dingle Foot. That man, the Solicitor General in the British government during that time, responded by giving an implied approval for the Africans' resort to resort to armed struggle when his response to UDI was that the African population had been denied all human rights and all means of political expression. History repeats itself. I wish Sir Dingle Foot was alive. Tinashe Zuri say, I wish Sir Dingle Foot was alive. He was going to see that the Zimbabwean population had been denied all human rights. Zimbabwe population had been denied all means of political expression. If you stand to oppose Emmerson Mnangagwa, you will be arrested and put in prison without bail for 2 years. Job Scala spent 2 years. Mudziva Shanduko is now almost 6 months in custody. And Nyoka Emabunu is 6 months, almost a year in custody in South Africa. South Africa being an accomplice to our suffering in Zimbabwe. This is why, you see, I wanted to talk, I wanted to invite Blessing McKay, the lad with an insight into most of the things I'm speaking here. I'm not sure if she is willing to join us today because I rang him this afternoon and she was crying. I've never seen such an activist in the rest of my political career who cry because the people of Zimbabwe are suffering. There is one lady in this country, in this Great Britain, known as Blessing McKay. I spoke to her this afternoon when I wanted her to join me live on Facebook to try and digest what is happening right now. She started crying when I spoke to her. And told him, Junior, James, it's clear here, guys. I don't have to repeat what I've said. I've said when Ian Smith declared UDI, black people or black minority were convinced that the only way to attain freedom was through the barrel of the gun. This is 1965. And Mugabe addressed the people and said, look, Mugabe addressed people in 1965 and say, look, for all those who cherish freedom and a meaningful life, UDI has set a collision course which cannot be altered. Similarly today, I am saying Zimbabwe government or ZANU-PF has set a collision course which cannot be altered. Mugabe went on to say 11 November 1965 marked a turning point of the struggle for freedom in that land from a constitutional and political one to a primarily military struggle. I am saying the same today, that the mutilation of the constitution of Zimbabwe has turned our struggle from being a constitutional struggle, from being a political struggle, but now we need to focus on a military struggle because the military is the one changing our constitution in that country. These words by Robert Mugabe in 1965 were echoed by Sir Dingu Foot in the British, who was the Solicitor General in the British government, who responded by giving an implied approval for the Africans to resort to an armed struggle. And why did the British government during that time approved the armed struggle in Rhodesia? It's because the population had been denied all human rights and all means of political expression. This is happening now. From 1965 to 2025, 50 years ago. Is it 60 years or so ago? Because 50 years is 75 plus 10, which is 60 years ago. 60 years ago, this is when these things happened. And they are happening 60 years after the British government gave a go-ahead to say, yes, you black Zimbabweans or black Rhodesians, as a population, you have been denied all human rights and all means of political expression. So they gave a go-ahead for an armed struggle in Rhodesia, which I believe today, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Britain, and Donald Trump, the President of America, I think if we approach these people, they can still give us a go-ahead because they are the superpowers. Zimbabwe, I want to be clear here. Zimbabwe, the map you see we call Zimbabwe today, we did not demarcate, we did not draw that map. That map was drawn by the British people. And they said this is Queen Elizabeth's Queen Victoria's property. It became a British protectorate. They have got a place they call Rhodesia, which they drew and said this belongs to Britain. No matter what we do today, that property still remains the property of Britain. Even if we want to negotiate, we cannot negotiate without the British getting involved. This is why you see the Lancaster House talks were held in Lancaster in England. Because the British were trying to bring warring parties in their property together and come with a solution to say we need peace in that land. This is why I am saying, this is why even Sir Dingu Foot nodded to the issue of armed struggle. Because he said all human rights of the population of Rhodesia were denied. And that still stands today. That all human rights of the people of Zimbabwe have been denied by ZANU-PF. All means of political expression have been shut by ZANU-PF. We have people, a good example, we have people in prison today who were arrested for expressing their political opinions. Distributing a flyer, kuti Mnangagwa has failed, must step down. We still have Itai Dzamara missing in Zimbabwe. Who displayed a placard to say Mugabe has failed, must step down. And he was abducted and was never seen again in Zimbabwe. We have got Mdarageza, who said Mnangagwa has failed. 2030 must be abolished idea, must be stopped. He fled Zimbabwe and they followed him to South Africa. They poisoned him. He died. All the youngsters that Geza was moving around campaigning for a no 2030 vote. Saruaka Kudzai was gunned down in South Africa. So what I'm saying here is that type of defiance, that denial of all human rights and the political expressions by Mudambudzo Mnangagwa has now made Zimbabweans shift their focus from political constitutional fights to primarily armed struggle. I think I'm being clear here. That is a declaration of war. The mutilation of that constitution is a clear declaration of war by Emmerson Mnangagwa and his ZANU-PF. Thus, the stage is now set for the next round of our political game. What is the next round? Andizo Zana Museveni chaizo zvechidictator kuita mahumbwe nevanhu, kuita mahumbwe nenyika. Mnangagwa does not regard Zimbabweans seriously. He takes them as a joke. Because every time when he exhibits his nonsensical behavior, Zimbabweans clap hands, ululate and jump on top and say, "Oh, president!" You know, instead of them condemning Mnangagwa, what Mnangagwa is doing. Saka mahumbwe nenyika. Madhara arutamba mahumbwe kukanya madhaga nenyika. Vanhu makatarisa kudaiso. And apana arikuve serious in challenging them. So this time, it is politics with the blood. When we talk politics with the blood, we mean war. Because when the government declares war against the people of the population or the people of a country, it has to expect those people to respond. People must respond. Because this is the government provoking people. And if you don't respond, you are cowards. So the people of Zimbabwe must respond. This time, it is politics with the blood. Exactly what Mugabe said. exactly what the Solicitor General in the British government during that time said, Dingu Futu said, that this time it is politics with blood. So what was not clear during that time? What was not clear to the political and the military leaders of the liberation movements at the time of starting the guerrilla campaign was the nature of war that was to be waged in pursuance of political objective of black majority rule. Similarly today, that what type of war do we need to wage against ZANU-PF government in pursuance of our objective of majority rule? What we are fighting for is we want the majority rule and nothing else. Nothing. We want a president who is elected by people. Imagine kuti ZANU-PF is removing elections kuti hakusina president achaelectwa muZimbabwe. Vakuda kuita zveku-South Africa zvekuti parliament ndo ino-appointa president. And that president will go for 7 years. That is not democracy. That's not the democracy we want. So at this juncture, a lot of people are puzzled. A lot of people are puzzled. The nature of what we need in pursuance with this objective of majority rule. What we want is majority rule in that country. During that time, indeed the nationalist leaders, they assumed that stepping up acts of sabotage and isolated attacks on police posts and remote white farms would be enough pressure on both the British government and the Smith regime to result in serious pursuit of peaceful settlement that would address the core issues at stake. This is history. This is exactly what happened for our independence to come. Because Mugabe, they were the black nationalist leaders of that time. And their idea or the nature of war that they thought was proper during that time was to step up sabotage of Rhodesia. They wanted to sabotage Rhodesia. They wanted to make or to embark on isolated attacks on police posts. This is what they did. They attacked police posts during that time. Those isolated police posts were attacked. And remote white farms, those farms which were towards the borders, which were remote, far away from protection or military protection, they were also attacked. And when they attacked those farms and police posts, they made sure they were putting pressure on both the British government and the Smith regime to result in a serious pursuit of peaceful settlement, which would address the core issues at stake. This is what happened after Smith declared UDI. This is what the nationalists did to Rhodesia. That's what they did to Rhodesia. So the nationalists are the ones now mutilating the constitution of the country. When they implemented such brutal attacks on the farms, brutal attacks on the police, so that they put pressure. They put pressure on the British government and the Smith regime to make a settlement of peace. Hanzi natete QD regaitinzwe. Hapana anoenda kuHondo. They have given a young generation mutoriro so that they have made those who can fight useless. They have made the Chamisa to be doubted by people, so this is going to be difficult as people are now worried about their stomach more than fighting for their rights by defending their constitution. I beg to differ, my sister. I beg to differ. We still have capable people to stand and fight in this regime. What I'm telling you here, Lenton Chidarara, hanzi no referendum, apana referendum. Vari kuita zvavari kuda nenyika, kuita mahumbwe nenyika baba. Ndosaka maona that gaitimbotaura. We want to look back. We want to see the differences between the Ian Smith regime and the current Robert Mugabe or Emerson Mnangagwa's government. What Ian Smith did is the same like what Mnangagwa is doing. And then more. So if we look back on those sabotages, those initial acts of sabotage during that time, they only served to harden white attitudes. Like what we are doing now. What we are doing, we are hardening ZANU-PF's attitude. And they failed, those acts of sabotage, they failed to produce the decisive action from either the British government or the Smith regime. So the short war illusion that was apparent among the guerrilla leadership and their cadres led to their initial failure to fully appreciate the true nature of revolutionary war. This view was further corroborated by J.K. Giller's observations that the insurgents' strategy during the early phases of the struggle for Zimbabwe was based on two false assumptions. First was the belief that Britain could be induced to intervene forcibly in Rhodesia should law and order seem imminent danger of collapsing. And it won. Secondly, there was this illusion that made the nationalist leaders believe that all that was necessary was to train and arm a few guerrillas and dispatch them back to Rhodesia to scare the wise and subsequently ignite the wave of civil disorder by blacks. The consequences of that lack of strategic appreciation of the type of war the guerrillas were embarking on resulted in some monumental tactical and political mistakes that led to a 4-year full in guerrilla activities as the liberation movement reviewed its political and strategy. And the referendum will be their end, that much they know. They don't want the referendum. Saka, tiri kutaura ma-strategies akashandiswa munguva dzaIan Smith. Ma-mistakes akaitwa nemagorilla leaders. Ekuti vakatrena vakomana 7 vakanoparara panonzi payapa pachinoi. The Battle of 7 chinoi ingrineya. Saka, ma-mistakes akawanda akaitwa as-strategy. Nema-tactical mistakes they were made that stalled the armed struggle. So the nature of war is what is important when we face a regime like Rhodesian regime, the Mugabe or Emerson Mnangagwa regime. The Rhodesian forces, for their part, anticipated the outbreak of hostilities and had sent military observers to Kenya, Malaya, and Vietnam on staged counter-guerrilla warfare. The Supreme Commander of the Rhodesian Forces, Lieutenant General Peter Walls, was a veteran of the Malaya campaign. Thus, at the outbreak of the 1966, the Rhodesian forces were far more prepared for armed conflict than the freedom fighters that had little or no proper knowledge about this scam. This enormous disparity in military preparedness contributed to entire groups of freedom fighters being literally wiped out in early battle encounters. So what I'm saying here is if we are serious to protect this constitution of Zimbabwe, if we decide to respond to what ZANU-PF regime is doing, we need to look into history of how they initiated a military struggle against Ian Rhodesia and what were the causes, what were the implications of that struggle. Because a lot of Rhodesians, a lot of gorillas were wiped. Right now, what we are doing, we are putting... Oh, you again.
How are you?
I'm fine, how are you? Good. You're warm. Where have you been?
I was eating. I just finished eating now.
Can you make me a cup of tea? Before I finish my presentation, because I'm trying to educate Zimbabweans on their history, so that they can take up a fight against the Emerson Mnangagwa regime. Saka varumbeka mukatarisa period ya 1968 kusvika 1972, in Rhodesia, people witnessed a deliberate and systematic approach by Zanla to mobilize the masses, carry out reconnaissance, and build a sound logistic base to sustain future guerrilla warfare in Rhodesia. By the summer of 1972, the political and tactical situation had drastically changed in favor of the Maoist guerrillas. So we have been in politics for too long. Since 1999, when I entered opposition politics as an official, until now, we must ensure that we have got a systematic approach in tackling these guerrilla idiots. We now need to do what we call a mass mobilization against ZANU-PF. Let's utilize military tactics to ensure that, for like reconnaissance, and let's build a sound logistic base to sustain our fight against the oppressive regime of ZANU-PF. Because I'm telling you guys, if we start now, patinosvika kunana April, May, June, July, kunana August, situation will drastically change. This 2030 nonsense, we can stop it if we want. And we want to sway the change to our favor. Hanzi mkoma mambonawo here magadzirirwo ari kuitwa maroad na EDE mudharaunda magetsi. We don't care about roads. We don't care about anything, because what we are talking, we care about the freedom of the people of Zimbabwe. Vana veZimbabwe, they don't eat roads. They don't work maroads imomo. 99% of those Zimbabweans are unemployed. They are suffering. There are no hospitals. And maroads acha arugadzirwa ndochazoziva ndeipi road iri kugadzirwa. Because takangona road yakagadzirwa yekubva kuBeit Bridge ikangomira. Tine road yakatanga kugadzirwa 1982, the shortest route from Magunje to Binga, from Harare to Binga. Yakangoperera pazvipanapa. And it's a very narrow road yekuti motikari dzoita head-on collisions dzichiovertakana. The only road yandikatotaura kuti inoda kugadzirwa, ikandi iri ngaigadzirwe, ndoda kuona 2-way 3-way dzakatarisa kuenda kuZambia, 2-way 3-way dzakatarisa kudzoka kuZambia kupinda muHarare. Then motiratidza road iyoyo ndiyo yatinofanira kutaura nezvayo kuti now Mnangagwa akugadzira road. As it stand, retiring to Manaro roads to Ian Smith, we cannot credit Mnangagwa to that. Because hana road yakavhura, hana road yakagadzira. MuZimbabwe, handina kuona road yakagadzirwa neZANU. For the last 46 years, handina kuona road yakagadzira. Ndakaona vachita rita road dza Ian Smith, and those roads were narrow. When Smith constructed those roads, he was looking at the volume of traffic during that time. manga musina motikari waiti bhazi 1 raipfuura after 3 hours wona bhazi raenda after 3 hours rimwe bhazi raenda the whole day waifamba mabhazi 2-3 murodhi idzodzo hadzaifa. Now every Jack and Jew has got a car. Murodhi dzacho hadzichakwani and rodhi idzodzo dzokupesana marural roads aya ma-accidents ma-head-on collusion ma-accidents haapere. People perish every day. Ukauya muno mu-UK munomu unogona kuona accident once in a while. Mamotorway hamuna ma-head-on collusion. Mapenzi anotozongoroerawo zvake kuseri kwemotikari iri kuzviendera kwairi kuenda. But anenge pane 3-way. Ukapinda mu-M1 there are 3 ways. 4 ways. Especially kama unopinda munana London 5-6 ways. Unotora rodhi yauri kuda uchipesana dzichinjana motikari. So if we talk about road construction, we want to see something chinoita like a motorway. Just across down South Africa, you will be shocked. You will be surprised. Kuti dzatiri kuti road muZimbabwe, road dzembeva. Mbeva hadzipesane muroad dzekuZimbabwe. Mbeva dzorumana. Saka let's not talk about a retiring of roads. So road dziri kugadzirwa muZimbabwe. Hapana road yandakaona ichigadzirwa muZimbabwe. I've been in Zimbabwe. I was born in Zimbabwe, bred in Zimbabwe, grew up in Zimbabwe. Road 1 yandakaona ichivhurwa, haina kuvhurwa futi, kwangurungogadzira road yakanga iripo kudhara. Road yekubva pamagunje, magunje 10 off kunosvika kubinga. Nanhasi since 1982 haisati yapfuura pazvipani road iyoyo. Ndio yatikataura nezvayo, ndio yandakaona 1 haina kuvhurwa. In fact vaingoita kugadzira road yakanga iripo in Smith. So what I'm saying is there is totally need of strategy in Zimbabwe, because ZANU-PF must go. We now all agree that ZANU-PF must go. ZANU-PF must go. One Western analyst who observed the insurgents, he said insurgents activities in the first half of 1973 suggested that the better experience of early battle losses led to a reappraisal of nationalist tactics and strategy, which showed a careful political preparation of the local population and adoption of classic guerrilla hit-and-run attacks by small locally based groups. So if we look at our situation now, what we need, like what I'm doing right now, is to try to prepare the Zimbabwe population. Let's prepare the Zimbabwe population for this fight. And let's adopt, we don't need to adopt this guerrilla tactic of hit and run. It's a thing of the past. We need to adopt a head-on collusion with the ZANU-PF. Hakuna road in Zimbabwe. Hakuna road in Zimbabwe. Hakuna. Mumwe munhu ainditaurira hanzi enda unoona road Harare Mutare road. Ndikati Harare Mutare road. Road yembeva. Mabhazi haapesane, road iri kudyika iri kupera. Harare Mutare road. Yakasiya yagadzirwa naIan Smith. Ndio ndiri kuuya nchirifewa nemumwe munhu weZANU-PF 47 years of independence. Tichizvitonga kuzere. Chinonzi kuzvitonga kuzere chi? If we can't build our country, tiri busy kugadzira kumutileta constitution, tichadzada busy kugadzira road, tichadzada busy kugadzira zvipatara. Chipatara chandakaona chakavakwa neZANU-PF kuMash West, ndakangona 1 hospital iyo yenhingirikini Chinoi hospital. Pakangotangwa afresh paya pagomo paya ndobva vavaka hospital. But ukaenda ukare hospital yagara iripo, kungomisa patsva chete, kungogadzira ward zvimwe zvezvo, that's it. Ukapfuura imomo kuchienda kumwe kwese hakuna zvipatara. What type of a country is that? What type of a government is that? Andimon. Saka hakuna chinonzi superiority in military hardware chine Zimbabwe right now. Havana pfuti dzacho, havana zvombo zvacho. Tikada kuvatora head on vaiva nyika yaya hatite 1 week tisina kuitora yaya. I'm giving you this from a very good example when Kabila launched his rebel group fighting in DRC to oust Mobutu Sese Seko. DRC hainambotora kana 2 months yakanga yakutotongwa na Kabila, although the stupid man had to eat a bullet and no sound. Vatanga kuita temba nengirini yangu. Vari kundinzwa sei ma love and likes pana batona. Ngoma temba only there is no sound here. Hanzi no sound here. Regaiti mbosaka mumanzi tichimirira kuti muri kundinzwa here. They must activate my sound. Handuziva kuti chichi kuitika. Even maybe it's network. Maybe it's network, guys. Pindai tinzwa. Saka pana vamwe vari kundinzwa, vamwe havasi temba maposa. Havasi kundinzwa, misi maposa havasi kundinzwa.
All they ever do is to still loot and deny our face. The government is an abomination. I swear, my brother, no respect for humanity. Fake pastor who do not know God are made ambassadors to smuggle gold. Charlatans like a ransom. Uber devil, nothing angelic about him. J. Israel and crew, criminals with a Bible fake prayers so they can fool the evil regime. Oh, shameless musicians like Ja Preza, Olivia, Gospel Mafia. You have no idea, it's broken to pieces and Lutex
Prison officer, Shepherd Judah.
Zimai, give to Salos, I forget Kolta. Our country is broken, stolen and torn apart. Hand in hand. How do I tell my story? The future of Zimbabwe is in a sorry state. And how do I shout for justice? Girlfriends are made ministers, corruption silenced our mouth. Zimbabwe is broken, mama. Can I tell you my story? Back in the day, this country was working. Listen, brother, in Zimbabwe.
Hello? Right, guys. Hanzi volume iriti. Kune vari kundinzwa. Ngoma temba, check your gadget 9. Right, so as we have learned today from the subsequent paragraphs, Mugatasa Zimbabwe military, haina hardware that determines the outcome of a war. Havana. Nepfuti dzacho havana. Ndege dzatiri kuona mahelicopter ma-Aluit 3 zvakapera kudhara zvezvi. Cheche tikanyatsochipina bhobo chogemuka. Handi muri kuona. Saka pane a lot that is contributing to the outcome of the conflict today in Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF as it stand haichinei nechekuita nevanhu. Pane vari kufona. Guys, problem inoita vanhu ka. Ndiri live on Facebook. Munhu ari kundifonera anenge achiona ndiri live on Facebook. Saka I don't know kuti anenge aida kundikate live on Facebook here. Because I'm not going to cut live on Facebook. I didn't maona. Saka what we need, guys, is history repeating itself. If you look at the nationalists, they had put their objectives down. They had set themselves to achieve a simply black majority rule. We also need to set up our objective. What do we want to do to achieve? Because we have seen that ZANU-PF government do not care about Zimbabwe, do not care about the Zimbabweans. So what do we need to do? We need to set up an objective. Secondly, we need to change or realize by adopting certain doctrines and strategies that have been used by other countries, especially when we engage in fight for freedom, for us to be successful. We cannot operate from the dust. We cannot operate from a no ideology point. we need some strategies, we need some ideologies that we need to implement so that we achieve our objectives. And lastly, when we look at the failures of ZANU-PF, when we looked at the failures of Ian Smith during that time, we need to comprehend something. We need to know the nature of war we need to engage on. Ipapapa, I can propose an armed struggle. In a similar way, the Mugabes, the nationalists, proposed armed struggle against the Ian Smith regime. But is it the struggle that people want to engage in? If you go to Uganda, there was a military leader known as Kony who engaged in a military struggle. Instead of going into people to convince Ugandans why he is fighting Yoweri Museveni, he started butchering these people. He started killing innocent civilians who were also further butchered by the Yoweri Museveni government. Saka ndiri kutaura ndichiti hazvisati zvaendwa tina. I am selling this idea to you. You guys, you need to sit down. We need to sit down. We need to map a way forward. If we decide to go into an armed struggle, let's engage in an armed struggle against ZANU-PF. If we decide that. If we don't decide that and decide otherwise, but otherwise, actually, we have engaged it for the last 26 years. We had MDC, we had MDC Alliance, we had Triple C, and they came to destroy all those organizations. Probably we lacked a doctrine. We lacked the strategy of engaging these guerrillas. So where did we lack? We need to sit down. We need to bring ideas down and see where we failed and what we need to do as Zimbabweans. I've said here when I started this presentation that I'm taking you back to the history of Rhodesia, history of Africa, history of why the guerrillas waged a war against Ian Smith regime. And what were their failures? What did they do good and attained independence in 1980? So after having made some serious tactical mistakes during their early years of the struggle. We did the same. When we formed the MDC, we made some tactical mistakes. We played to ZANU-PF propaganda and the tune, because they said when they went to war, they fought the British. And now Mudara Changirai went to the British and was being supported by the British. That was a tactical mistake, which was utilized by the ZANU-PF propagandists to say we are puppets, when we were never puppets of any country. You understand? That was a tactical mistake that we made during our early formative stages. And these guerrillas, these Mnangagwas, when they were fighting the Ian Smith regime, they made the same tactical mistakes. The nationalist leaders made a rational assessment of their military situation. So they made an equal pragmatic assessment of the regional and international environment and embarked on a realistic strategy aimed at bringing the Rhodesian economy to a standstill. So this is why I am saying that if we have got think tanks in our amongst us, in our society, first of all, we know where ZANU-PF is getting their economic heavyweight. It's through corruption. And they are selling gold outside the country without the approval of anyone. And that gold money is not going into the coffers of the state. So what do we need to do? We need a realistic strategy aimed at bringing the loophole that they are making money to suffer or stop. If we stop that loophole, then the Zimbabwe economy will come to stand still. People would see now. Corruption. So we need to bring that corruption to stand still. The economy will come to stand still and shatter the resistance that ZANU-PF would put. This is what they did. This is exactly what the guerrillas did during the war. They made an equally pragmatic assessment of the regional and international environment. Right now, the international environment is ripe to stop corruption. If we engage Dubai government, it will stop buying our gold. If we engage other dictators there, they will stop supporting Emerson Mnangagwa's government. So we can have an upper hand in the international arena. In a similar way, they did. They had to assess the regional and the international environment. And they embarked on a realistic strategy aimed to bring the Rhodesian economy to a standstill and shattering the whites' will to resist. So we know if we want to shatter ZANU-PF's will to resist, we know where to touch. We know where to touch. You know where to touch. You understand? We cannot let our constitution being mutilated like this. Andimon, unoziva kuti ndakaverenga what Chitepo wrote, Herbert Wilshire Chitepo, when he was outlining his military objective. I will read it again so that you guys can understand. The strategic aim is to attenuate the enemy forces by causing their deployment over the whole country. The subsequent mobilization of a large number of civilians from industry, business and agriculture would have a psychological devastating effect on the morale of the whites, most of whom had come to Zimbabwe lured by the prospect of the easy privileged life promised by the regime. Zvakaita kuti vanhu vaende kuHondo. Thanks Mkoma George. Zvakaita kuti vanhu vaende kuHondo is what we are seeing today. So what we are saying is, we will face difficulties in engaging in whatever we want to plan today. But we need to make sure that every strategy we will implement will have Security Council approval. Let Security Council agree to some of sensitive issues that we will bring to United Nations or we will table to United Nations. When it came to the Rhodesian crisis, United Nations vote was almost unanimous in support of introduction of punitive economic sanctions and against the Rhodesia. Rhodesia, United Nations yakabvumirana nazvo kuti ngatichirova ine sanctions. There are a number of theories that have been advanced to explain the behavior of the big powers on the question of Rhodesian sanctions. First, it is important to note that it was Britain, a member of the Security Council, that brought the Rhodesian issue to debate. It did so under pressure of Commonwealth and the Organization of African Union member states. The United States endorsed the British motion, hoping, as the British did, that sanctions were going to bring the Smith regime to its knees in a matter of weeks or months. France abstained from voting. China and the Soviet Union were naturally expected to support such a move, as the two countries identified themselves with the liberation movements across the world. So Ian Smith argued that the United States agreed to support the British motion for mandatory sanctions on the condition that Britain supported the US adventures in Vietnam. It is considered that since the United States was going through some rough period of civil rights activism in the mid of 1960s, it was only prudent for the administration to publicly oppose UDI in fear of antagonizing the Black American civil rights movement. imi vanhu nhoroondo yehondo yezimbabwe yakasapotwa nema-americans. Ari kutukwa nhasi ma-americans yaikuti vanhu vakadada political vanzi muri ma-puppets of the west, because ZANU-PF was supported by the west. America supported ZANU-PF, Britain supported ZANU-PF. Vana France chete ndo yakaramba, but dzimwe nyika dzese they supported ZANU-PF, because vakanga vasingade kuzviya na-UDA zvakanga zvaitwa na-Ian Smith. Saka muri kuona ndiri kutaura nchiti Ian Smith took advantage of the communist rhetoric by the political leaders of the liberation struggle to rally support from South Africa, Portugal and some Western democracies opposed to the spread of communism outside the immediate periphery of the Soviet Union. Saka isusu now, let's go back kuma British. Let's go back kuma Americans. Tovataura kuti vanhu venyu vaiva makasapota nguva dzehondo, muri kuona zvavakuita here? Saka isusu tafunga kurovana navo. So what we are just seeking is diplomatic pressure as political leaders. And then I can be a leader of an armed struggle. I'm not scared. I can be a leader. I know people fear of worldwide condemnation, but Smith was condemned worldwide. Mugabe was condemned worldwide. Mnangagwa, we must lead to the condemnation of Mnangagwa worldwide. By the powers direct confrontation, we need to confront Emerson Mnangagwa. South Africa in a history yekutengesa. Mukada kuona during the struggle war, these Rhodesians, the UDI, they were supported by South Africa. A day after UDI, the South African premier, Mkuru South Africa, is Dr. Verwoerd, announced that it was his government's policy to promote friendship with the neighboring governments. And they started supporting South Africa. This is the similar stance adopted by Ramaphosa and Mbeki. They said they have got a duty, or they've got a policy in South Africa to promote friendship with all neighboring governments, including Zimbabwe, with which it had established the closest relationship. South Africa has been like that. Let's not bank on South Africa. Let's not base on South Africa. South Africa, from being apartheid South Africa, they were supporting Rhodesia. Now Ramaphosa is supporting ZANU-PF. These people were like that. There is nothing chinobuda kutsvage support in South Africa. In that regard, South Africa would refrain from participating in Anglo-Rhodesia disputes and from intervening in such measures as economic boycotts. Fuel, South Africa yaipa Rhodesia. Zombo, South Africa yaipa Rhodesia. Prior to detente, South Africa's guarantee for military support led the Smith regime to be arrogant when it came to exploring a negotiated settlement. This is still what is happening now. If you look at South Africa, Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa is arrogant. Mugabe was arrogant. What Mnangagwa is doing today is just showing arrogance, because he knows he has got support of the South Africans and other countries like China and Russia. We need to fight, guys. And mona. Ndo pakataura kuti zviri kutaurwa zvakataurwa naSmith ndo zviri kutaurwa naEmerson Mnangagwa. Ndo zviri kutaurwa neZANU-PF. Smith akati, you know, when you become arrogant like Ian Smith, Mnangagwa has become arrogant now. Smith akati, not in 1,000 years would the blacks in Rhodesia rule themselves. This is how Smith declared. This statement from Prime Minister Ian Smith had far-reaching consequences on the conduct and outcome of the War of Liberation. On the one hand, the statement galvanized the resolve among the whites in Rhodesia and South Africa that black majority rule was not an option whatsoever towards resolving the conflict of Rhodesia. This is the arrogance that has been shown by Emerson Mnangagwa. To the extent that tatone vamwe vanhu vari kubhilivha kuti independence or freedom will never gain it through any other means in Zimbabwe. Zvakangoitwa naSmith, sandura history repeats itself. So on the other hand, the moderate blacks who were originally opposed to violent means of attaining independence became dumbfounded as the agitators for waging war considered them to be fence-sitters or outright sellouts. So currently, we've got fence-sitters in our situation. We've got outright sellouts, especially the people we voted into parliament. They are outright sellouts. The impact of what ZANU-PF is doing when they are mutilating the constitution of the country. Wana Shabangu, wana Welshman Mnue, kushamisika wana itiwa kutopindirawo imomo. These are the outright sellouts. People who do not care about Zimbabwe. People who care about their pockets. So, if you look at the Smith regime's infamous statement, it came at a time when winds of change were sweeping across the continent of Africa. Similarly with what is happening today, winds of change are sweeping across the continent of Africa today, with the Botswana gaining independence, with the Malawi doing the same, Zambia doing the same, the SADC region. Chasara ndichochi Namibia ichochi neZimbabwe ndozvasara chete. South Africa, Ramaphosa is done. Next election, you won't hear about the ANC. So there are winds of change which are sweeping across SADC. If you look at what I've stated here, scores of African and other colonized territories during that time across the world were gaining independence. Then there was Ian Smith declaring that there would never be an independent Zimbabwe. And today we talk of an independent Zimbabwe. In 1,000 years. This is what the arrogant ZANU-PF is showing us. Ian Smith's compromising statement, coupled with the effects of United Nations sanctions, and which hate blacks more than whites, fueled the resolve of the black youth to flood the refugee camps across Rhodesian borders in search of weapons to fight the white minority regime. That will be happening again. As I strongly believe Russia put in Russia obviously is behind this arrogance of Mnangagwa. But I'm telling you, what happened after Smith's reckless talk, a lot of people start fleeing Zimbabwe, flooding our borders, crossing into neighboring countries, seeking for weapons to wage a war to fight Ian Smith. This is gonna happen. I've said history will repeat itself. Thousands of youth will flee Zimbabwe, will throng the borders, will cross to train and come to fight Emerson Mnangagwa's government. Mark my words, keep this video. And you know, why would they do that? Why would they do that? First of all, the chances of one getting a decent employment after university in Zimbabwe, the chances are zero now. During Ian Smith, the chances were slim. But in ZANU-PF government, chances are zero. Hakuna mabasa acho, hakuna makambaniz acho. So, as a result of stupidity, we don't call them economic sanctions, but as a result of ZANU-PF stupidity, all the companies shut down. So chances of university graduates attaining jobs in Zimbabwe is zero. It's zero. Because the government has got no jobs. So one could not imagine living with such a desperate situation for generations when other Africans were becoming independent in neighboring countries. In Zambia, people are enjoying life. In Botswana, people are enjoying life. If we cross to South Africa, we are followed and shot. So that's during the later part of the armed struggle in Zimbabwe, especially after the adoption of the Maoist doctrine and the strategy. Problems associated with the recruitment of young men and women to fill the ranks of freedom fighters became a thing of the past. This is why I'm saying history repeats itself. Wait and see what this nonsense Mnangagwa is doing. It becomes a thing of the past to recruit people to fight Emerson Mnangagwa. It becomes a thing of the past. Right now, if I say, ngatite go tinorwana Mnangagwa, unoona karikiriki kachaitwa baba. Ndokanokuratidza kuti zvaendwa. Andimona. Because the real challenge facing the commanders in the armed struggle during that time and the political leaders during the struggle was how to adequately equip, feed, clothe, and provide health services to thousands of potential freedom fighters languishing in refugee camps in neighboring countries. Even after the war, ZANU-PF cannot feed, clothe, and provide health services to the same people who went to fight in the war. And the same people are now willing to get rid of ZANU-PF. So the solution, ladies and gentlemen, during that time lay in taking maximum advantage of the bipolar conflict and appealed for military assistance from whoever was willing to assist in the war of the liberation, as we are doing today. We are appealing to those who have got the resources, who have got the potential to make us. We are willing to work to free the country. As Ramaphosa zisa tsitsi. He will never do that in South Africa. And Saka, we are appealing to the people out there, the Americans, the British people. We are appealing for your military offers. Although we might have strings attached to those, but we are willing to get rid of ZANU-PF government. We were willing to get rid of ZANU. We need any assistance possible today. Because I know some countries are ready to offer us even troops to fight on behalf of on our behalf, similar to what happened during the struggle for Zimbabwe. Some countries, they offered their troops to fight on behalf of the freedom fighters. But such offers were not entertained in fear of internationalizing the conflict. But ours, we are ready for it. The political leadership today must avoid swapping ZANU-PF masters by adoption of their slogan. To Mnangagwa 2030 anenge achipo. Andimona. Saka varume, I don't want to take long. I can continue and talk. But what do we need? What do we need? What do we need? We need people tomorrow who will be seen as national heroes. Today, who are enemies of ZANU-PF. People who will defend our ancestors' freedom. Ndakataura musuno ndikatochema ere futi kuti nehanda nyakasikana against these new oppressors. Takachema against the colonizers. Tochema futi with these black oppressors. Todzokera ere futi kwa nehanda kunochema. Because when these people came from war, we saw them as people who fought bravely and risked their lives trying to attain the freedom from the white colonial regime. who oppressed us. Andiri muona. Zvekuti now, in our modern education muzvikoro, our children were supposed to be aware of the war, that war, were supposed to be aware of the achievements of the war. Andiri. Kuti patichitaura kuti national heroes, tichitaura vanhu vakatirwira. Now, vakatobva muchi-national hero, we cannot call them national hero. They are national enemies. And there is no reason for us to support them. Fully aware what we are going through under ZANU-PF regime. Andiri muri kunzwa. Ndosaka ndiri kutaura kuti muZimbabwe varume, we must refuse to be black slaves in our country, enslaved by another black man. We must refuse to be harshly criticized by ZANU-PF because they fear mass movement of Zimbabweans. Because of this dilemma, ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabweans are unable to reject anything that is offered by ZANU-PF. They can't reject. And now you are my reform, my amendment, the constitution. Hapana kana ari kutaura nezvazvo. Vanhu vari mumashews nenyaya yekutya. Handityi, guys. I'm not scared. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to fight. Because mutilation of this constitution, Warume, it will never create peace in our country. It will create violence, not make peace. Mutilation of our constitution does not pave a way for total freedom, but paves a way to permanent oppression. This mutilation, Warume, doesn't make peace. You know what peace is? Is where people are free from oppressors. Chet. Free from the abuse and exploitation. We are not free from abuse and exploitation. We are exploited on a daily basis. We are abused by the government on a daily basis. And Murugan. Saka ndiri kutaura kuti tasvika nguva yekuti we must not endorse nonsense. We must not endorse stupidity when our constitution is being mutilated. So due to this primary goal of defending the constitution and fighting this regime, we must engage other countries. And then I'm leading you. Starting from today onwards, I'm going to write emails, going to do what, seek engagement to other countries to say, look, Taneta nembwa idzi. Handiti maona, guys. Saka ndati inini ndombokupai history, ndombokudzosai kumashure zvishomanini kuti understand the struggle for Rhodesia. Kuti zviri kusiyana here nezviri kuitwa neZANU-PF. Zvakaita kuti vaende kuHondo zvasiyana here nezviri kuitwa neZANU-PF kuti isusu tiendewo kuHondo. And that's what I was saying to say they are destroying our youth with Mtoro. Now you can see people who are sober and you can say we are not scared. It's us who are outside and our brains have no Mtoriro. Thank you so much, Adet. Saka there are hostilities in our country, guys. We are suffering. And for us to succeed in this battle, we must ensure that we put our heads together. We must ensure that our center of gravity in this conflict shift from rural to urban now. Because vese vari kumaruzevha kuti vadle vari kuuya kuzodla mutauni. Mutauni macho hamusina makamba, hamusina chii. Andimona. Saka ndo zvaakudiwa kuti iwe neni tine basa. Ndichada kugara, ndichada kuswedzai to 11. Regai ndokondinya mangwana. Mondiriminder pandasira so that we continue tomorrow. Anditika. Good night wakomana. Muvatewo zvakanaka. Muvate zvakanaka. Musavate muchitsikana. Muchipopotedzana muchitukana. Tine basa rekuita. Ngatipopotedzane nekutukana neZANU-PF government kwete muZimbabwe. Anditika. Good night.
All they ever do is to steal loot and deny in our face. Your government is an abomination. I swear, my brother, no respect for humanity. Fake pastor who do not know God are made ambassadors to smuggle gold. Charlatans like a ransom. Uber devil, nothing angelic about him. J Israel and crew, criminals with a Bible fake prayer so they can fool the evil regime. Oh, shameless musicians like Ja Praiser, Olivia, Gospel Mafia. You have no idea it's broken to pieces. And Lutex prison officer shepherding you. Zimai, gift to Salos, I forget Kolta. Our country is broken, stolen and torn apart. Hand in hand. How do I tell my story? The future of Zimbabwe is in a sorry state. And how do I shout for justice? Girlfriends are made ministers, corruption silenced our mouths. Zimbabwe is broken, mama. Yeah. Can I tell you my story? Back in the day, this country was working. Listen, brother, you Zimbabwe.
Shame. It's broken, mama. Good night.